Of course, more the merrier. So let's see how it goes through.
Okay. Okay. I'll then quickly come back with my coffee and
sure.
Yeah,
we will start
sure.
exactly after 5-6 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll be back. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So it says this meeting has been live streamed. Got it or leave meeting. So should I just press got it, right? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Gaurav, I can. Wait a second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have to leave and come back, right?
No, you can just leave it open only, not a problem.
Okay.
I think people are slowly joining in. I know it is a Sunday evening, so we might get people to join as per their convenience. I think, but then we will start our conversation as planned. Um, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this webinar today. This is to talk about the future of healthcare sector. To have this conversation today, we got two guests from another continent. So we got Gaurav Arora and Bibaswan Ghoshal. Gaurav, of course, is a business strategy manager at PwC Canada. He has done biomedical engineering and then MS in international public health and international health from University of Bradford. He has got over 10 years of experience in the healthcare sector. He has worked across 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and North America. So very happy to have you here, Gaurav. Gaurav had been to the India Career Center as a guest speaker as well earlier. Our second guest is Mr. Bibaswan Ghoshal, who is again a biomedical engineering student from India. After completing his education in India, he has done MS in University of Alberta, Canada in 2011. He completed that, and currently he is pursuing his PhD from the same university. He has got wide experience in bioinformatics, microbial informatics, genomics, single cell, and a lot of technical stuff, which I am a novice to really talk about. Apart from that, I know Bibaswan is a writer. He writes. He has got a fantastic blog as well. He's also into organizing the film festivals in Alberta as well as in Toronto now. So a fantastic human being. He has been also our guest in the previous episodes in India Career Center. So gentlemen, thank you so much, both of you, to join here today for this program. And I know both of you have joined us early in the morning, Sunday morning from Canada, Toronto. A quick word about myself. I'm myself a mechanical engineer by training. I've also done an MBA and a doctorate in the business management. I am the founder director of India Career Center, and I'm also the managing partner at True Focus, which is basically into overseas education consulting. I've got about 22 years in experience in the construction equipment industry, working with a couple of MNCs in India. So as part of my passion, I do podcasting, I do YouTube videos and things like that, so which you can follow. And all of this is towards career planning and career mentoring and career guidance. To set the context of today's webinar, I would like to take you through some of the highlights or some of the important aspects of how the world is going to be. So as per the studies by UN, what is expected that the population in the world is going to be about 8.5 billion people from a current level of about 7.5 billion by 2030. And by 2030 also, what we see is that about 1.4 billion people out of that will be more than 60-year-old. So, and this is globally across the globe. Yeah. And of course, about 7.5 billion people will have access to internet connectivity. This is again a study by Cybersecurity Ventures. So, what are the global trends? If you look at the global trends, digitization, decarbonization, population and health, and energy security. These are the four major global trends across the globe right now, and these will continue to be the focus areas for next 30, 40 years. Now coming to specifically about the population and healthcare, by 2050, it is expected that the world will have about 9 billion people on this planet, right? And if you look at the right side, the map, these are the different colors for the global median age, which means that people, let's say from Canada, all across the Europe, including Russia, Japan, all these places, the median age of these countries are over 40 right now already. And slightly lesser, darker colors, the age is anything between 30 years to 40 years, the median age. And colors which are light in color, which is yellow and darker yellow shades, their median ages range anything between 25 years to 14 years. So all across North America, Europe, South America, Australia, Russia, Japan, all these places, the population are aging. So that's where people will need more and more younger people to go there and contribute to those economies. So which means that lot of skilled people from India, Asia, Africa, even Mexico, and some part of Southern America will actually move around across the globe to provide those economical young people for the world. So we've seen that people are getting older, so which means that a lot of people across the globe, about 1.4 billion people will get older. I would request people to keep mute. Yeah. And so along with the population, the health is also going to be a big area of focus. Now, I know most of you are joining us today are from India. So this is a context setting for the people who have joined us from India. Many of you I know are students, some of you are parents, and some of you are going to see this video probably later on. So I would like you to focus on this table, and in this table you need to look at the data with respect to 1997 to 2011. So people in India who are born in this category between 1997 to 2011, they constitute about 36 crore. And this is the demographic dividend of India, so-called demographic dividend of India, because these are the people who will remain, keep our country young for a very long time. I think till about 2060, India will remain a young country. At the same time, one must also understand that all these cohorts between 1997 to 2011, they will also have intense competition amongst themselves. So on one end, it is good to have young people in this age category. At the same time, the resources are limited. So right from studying to occupation and later on, for everything, there'll be intense amount of competition. So some of these young people might have to look at opportunities outside India as well. Now, when it comes to choosing career, and I know most of you are probably college-going students who have joined us today, but even after you have joined your college, even after you have, you're about to complete your studies, what you need to look at when you're choosing the right career, because college education is not the career. The career actually will start after your education is over, because you're going to spend next 30, 40 years in the job or occupation. So what is important for a career is that three factors. One is your personality, which means that you could be cheerful, friendly, you could be hardworking, you could be social, you could be energetic, you could be, the thinking type, and so on and so forth. So these are your personal traits, right? And then there are some natural inbuilt abilities, which are basically the intellectual and mental abilities. And everybody is different, so we need to look at that as well. And then what are your interests? Even if you have, let's say, took up a specific education background, either you have taken up a particular stream, in that stream also it is possible to, take a route which is aligned to your interest as well. So when you're choosing your career post your education, it is important to take cognizance of all these three aspects, which is basically your ability, your interest, and personality, and mix it together really to arrive at the suitable career path. So that's how I call it, that as the convergence of all these factors. Now, what are the career options? If you look at the world today, we saw earlier that the world is around about 7.5 billion people today, and by 2050 it will become 9 billion people. So if you have so many people, what you need, the basic human needs are what? Basic human needs are food, clothes, home, infrastructure, energy, healthcare, education, entertainment, transportation, communication. If all of you, or either you are a student or you are a parent, and you have kid who has to take up a professional career in these areas, any of these areas, if you take up, you will be good in terms of having a sustainable career going forward. At the same time, your technical skill or your core skill, along with that, what is also required is the 21st century skills, because those are the skills which are going to be the differentiator amongst your cohorts. So whether it is complex problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, people management, and so on and so forth. Why these are important? Because we all know that digitization, automation, AI, all that is coming in a big way, and they will replace more and more mundane and repetitive tasks, which are predictable tasks. And as human being, we need to do things which are human, where the human thinking is required, human skills are required, and these are the skills which are going to be important for a long-term and sustainable career. Now, specifically coming to healthcare sector, which is why we got two experts from Canada joining us today. So today we'll try to see what are the different things which are happening in the world. We saw how the COVID-19 has really impacted our lives, and how the vaccinations have been developed, which is unprecedented, which is unthinkable, the way at the pace at which it has been developed and used across the world. Though I think there are opportunities there as well. People are getting older, so a large part of the world, geographically at least, are getting older. So that's an area of opportunity as well as concern. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, those are the technologies which are coming in now in a big way into the healthcare system. Remote monitoring and telehealth already started, but then more and more of this will come as we go along. The Internet of Things, the wearables, I think some of it already we have started using, but then a more advanced version of this will come as we go along. The AR and VR and bioprinting, personalized medicine. Then obviously we have experts from the Canada, so we will also listen from them as to what are the opportunities available for healthcare professionals in Canada. What are the different types of roles with respect to patient-facing roles? What are the technology and in the operations and backend support? What is opportunity in the hospital management and what is opportunity in the drug manufacturing. So broadly, these are the topics which are of interest for people who have joined us or who are going to see our video later on or listen to our podcast later on. So without taking much time, we will dive into the discussion part, and I will end my screen sharing now so that we can get into the discussion now. Give me a moment. Okay, stop sharing. Yeah. Yeah, so we have got two of our guests today talking to us about the various aspects. So, Bibaswan, I would like to start with you to talk about the COVID-19 and the vaccination part of it. As a healthcare specialist from Canada, and also keeping a view of how you see these two aspects panning out. Bibaswan, over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thanks, SP. First of all, thanks for having me on the show, and it's a pleasure to share my knowledge and expertise with students across India. First of all, I should give a disclaimer that I'm no expert on each of these fields, so I'll be talking about in a general, idea, because it's just a disclaimer. I'm not claiming that I'm an expert in everything. I'm just a regular healthcare professional working with the healthcare industry for the last 10 years. So that's where my understanding comes, and that's what I'll be speaking about. So first of all, yes, COVID-19 had a huge impact on healthcare. And there's both positive and negative, and I'm sure Gaurav will join in on this as well. But first of all, if I talk about the negatives, obviously we were in a pandemic for 2 years. That has impacted our physical health, that has impacted our mental health, right? And it has been really, shown through research that this will have a long-term effect. So people who have already had COVID-19, they will have long-term physical effects throughout that will impact their lives later on. People who have not got COVID would probably get COVID sometime in the future. Obviously now with vaccinations, things are going better. Things are looking a lot better, and even with newer variants, we are coping with COVID-19 in a very easier way, but still it's going to be there forever, right? It's not that it's going to vanish from the face of the earth. So we are just getting used to living with it, as we have done with like a SARS or a flu virus, but this will be a regular thing going forward. So obviously, we have seen data that there has been a 25 to 30% increase in anxiety and depression in people because of the isolations. We were stuck for a longer periods of time, and even in North American countries, Europe, a lot longer than probably what you have seen in India. But these isolations have created or brought forward the mental health aspect of the of the healthcare industry as well, that mental health is being affected, and there's a lot we need to do to stay together, to help each other out in terms of mental health, but also get professional help, right? Which is not very common even in North American countries, but it's basically speaking out about the mental health concerns that you're going through, talking, treating mental health as health, right? So that's very important going forward. But what also, at least in terms of Canada, what we saw is there was huge redeployment of staff because staff were getting COVID. They couldn't get into the hospitals anymore. So there was huge redeployment of staff just to work in the front line, just to help with COVID, right? So what happened is there were in 2021 or 2022, there were almost, especially 2020, 2021 period where the pandemic was at peak, like the first wave and the third wave were the worst. But in these 2 years, there were almost 5 lakh surgeries that did not happen as compared to 2019 or 2018, right? So almost 5 lakh people didn't get the surgeries that they needed to, make them feel better. And I'm not talking about like critical surgeries, because even critical surgeries like an open heart surgery or a stent placement, these were delayed as well. But regular surgeries like a kidney stone or a hip replacement, knee replacement surgeries, they were delayed, and they're still delayed. Like there's people in Canada who are still waiting over 2 years just to get their knee replacement done or a hip replacement. And this is adding to the cost of healthcare as we go in, right? So these people are going to get, the delay that they're facing in their surgeries is going to have long-term impact in their health as well. So it's a ripple effect, right? It's not that it happened for 2 years and now we are back to normal. We are traveling, we are leading our normal life. Doesn't mean that it won't have an impact long-term on the healthcare. It is definitely going to have a long-term impact, right? And even in India as well, right? We have seen how the country has changed over time during the course of the pandemic, and this is going to be this is going to be the norm, right? One thing I think where there was a very big advantage in India was already an existing infrastructure for technology, right? And that really worked in favor of India in terms of virtual care, and obviously for people who could afford it, for people who could use it. Technology played a huge role, right? Which was a little bit lacking in North American countries because of privacy. And I know Gaurav can speak a lot about it in terms of like policies and privacy policies that were in place, where it took time to adopt technology in terms of using it for virtual care. But what also, now talking about the positives, it ushered this new era of virtual care, telehealth, remote patient monitoring. These were already there, but now there was a need to accelerate these technologies so that it could be used to deliver care for patients, and so that healthcare professionals can connect effectively, efficiently with their patients and get them treated. So that's, I think, where the change happened, is that technology adoption in healthcare became faster and faster. In terms of vaccination, obviously, that was, again, very unprecedented. We have seen like something like a vaccine for HIV took around 50, 60 years to be made. COVID-19 vaccine was made in less than 2 years, which is a record time. It's very unprecedented. And the reason it could be done was because people were already working towards it. There was knowledge that was passed on to us from the SARS vaccination or from the SARS virus. So we knew also mRNA technology had already been working, and they have been trying, and this just accelerated things. But also, again, what happened is, for a clinical trial of COVID-19 to happen, they stopped globally. Like the FDA literally stopped every other clinical trial that was going across the country, right? So which would never happen again, right? Because there are oncology drugs, there's Alzheimer's drugs that were put on hold just because we could finish the COVID-19 vaccination clinical trials faster. And that's never going to happen again, right? Because those drugs are as important as a COVID-19 vaccine. Obviously, this was an emergency, so that's why it had to be done faster. But again, we could show that if all the resources come together, we can get things out really fast, right? And the vaccines are working, so that's the best part, right? So obviously, there's some variants which affect, which don't work, which work less effectively, or the vaccines work less effectively towards some vaccines, or some variants, but it's going to be, it's still okay right now, right? And we are getting back to some form of normalcy, at least from the North American perspective.
Okay. Gaurav, I would like to bring in here. I remember when we spoke last time, you talked about how there is a huge amount of shortage in terms of the manpower, especially in the Canadian healthcare system, where the number of people retiring from the healthcare system are far greater than the ones which are currently there. And you, from the point of view of expert in the field of consulting, how do you see this, and what are the opportunities which you see, which from the Indian students' point of view can be opportunity for people to look at and target?
Sure. First of all, yeah, thank you everyone for joining in, and thank you, Dr. Mishra, for inviting me. I will also borrow the disclaimer from Bibaswan. I am a bit more knowledgeable for certain fields, but since I have worked in healthcare, my career has been, I've been lucky to work in different aspects of healthcare. So hospitals, startups, pharmacy companies, now consulting, also government agencies in UK, and I've also worked with state government of Haryana. So I have that jack of all perspective on healthcare, so which I think people should find helpful and at least interest in those aspects. So talking about shortage in healthcare in terms of human resources. So just for everyone who hasn't seen the previous webinar, what Dr. Mishra was saying is, I quoted last time that then just one statistic to put things into perspective is, in the next year or so, in Canada, about like more than 10%, I think the statistics around 13-14%, but at least more than 10% of the nursing staff, which is the key when we think about patient-facing roles in healthcare, are going to get retired. And but the current education system, that the graduates that we are producing in Canada, is nowhere near to bridge that number. So that's why Canada has been traditionally very high on inviting economic immigrants to the country who bring in not only the diversity which Canada wants to be known for, but also the skill set to support the economy. And also the graph that you showed, I think is a very clear indication. Canada is amongst the highest in terms of median age across the world. So it's not only the staff that is going near the retirement age, it's also the people who are going to that age. And so lesser people available to work basically, but more people available to be cared for. So it's a very difficult problem to have. And as I said, Canadian government, you can see in the immigration numbers and the targets is always increasing drastically, and it will continue to increase. So talking about major things that are in shortage when we talk about human resources, so there's definite shortage of patient-facing roles. So patient-facing roles can be in many forms. So I'll start with the patient journey. I think that makes it easier for people to understand as well from an Indian context or globally as well. So whenever anyone needs a healthcare professional for consultation, they go to a physician or they go to a pharmacist in India. Traditionally, In Canada, the system has been you get assigned to a family physician. Each family physician has a capacity of handling, let's say, X amount of families. Let's say one for the discussion's sake, one family physician can tackle 100 families. But there is such a shortage of family healthcare physicians that, as a new immigrant, I have seen it myself. And for people who have landed in Canada, it can take up to like sometimes 6 months or sometimes even up to a year to get even a family physician. If you're especially living in a big metropolis like GTA or Vancouver area or Calgary, Edmonton, there's simply no availability to get a family physician. So the problem starts right there. So when you don't have a family physician, you don't really know what are the regular screening, or in India, we are a big fan of doing annual physical checks, or sometimes even quarterly physical checks. So there's no one to guide you to that. Unlike in India, where you can basically order yourself annual physician or as frequently as you want your health checks. In Canada, you cannot do that. You need a doctor to prescribe you that, and only then you can go to a lab and do that. So the problem starts right there. And it's not just the physician is also teamed with a lot of people. So there is health office management professionals. So there's a lot of courses. If you look at any major career colleges in Canada, I'll just name a few. So maybe Conestoga, George Brown, these are bigger colleges in Ontario. So you'll see a lot of courses opening up for health office administration or health office management in this profession. It is a huge shortage of people. Like there is a huge shortage of people in this. So that's another area to target for if you are aspiring professional. Moving on to so after you've seen a physician, or okay, so I should also point out to the pharmacy. So I've seen a lot of people that have a pharmacy background in India. They start here as a pharmacy assistant. This by no means is a lesser career. I would highly recommend is for someone who is in a pharmacy background. You should try out that. If you're not sure whether pharmacy operations in India versus here is different, just check out these courses of pharmacy assistant. They basically help the pharmacist to run the pharmacies. So that's another thing. And as Bibaswan was saying about COVID-19 exposing really this shortage. So what is happening to see from a policy standpoint, I can mention traditionally in India, whether if you have certain conditions, you can just go to a pharmacist or chemist, as they call in India, and you can mention your diagnosis, symptoms. They will be able to prescribe you, and you basically don't even need to see a doctor, which is a great help to reduce the burden on the healthcare system. Because rather if something can be resolved without going to a physician with same level of quality, it's preferable. Canada and other North American countries are realizing that. So they are also increasing the scope of pharmacists. And in Canada is a provincial based system. So these things happen province wise. So some provinces, I can mention Alberta, for example, has been the leader in this, increasing the scope of pharmacists. And very recently in Ontario now, there has been a change, and that pharmacist can actually prescribe medications. So these changes are happening, and for someone who is looking to make a career out of this, needs to follow this and basically bridge that gap. Moving to the business end of healthcare, which is hospitals or long-term care homes. There, as I already mentioned, nursing is one profession that has continue to be facing shortages even before COVID. COVID has only accelerated that. Nursing is a regulated profession in most of the countries, and as it is in India as well. But for someone who is, let's say, already a qualified nurse in India or is willing to start a career in nursing, again, what I like about Canada and other North American countries is you have that liberty to try out different things without being fully invested in something. So, for example, if you want to try out nursing, you don't have to enroll in a expensive degree program. You can try out a diploma certificate course for 6 months. There are lots of courses, social work, personal support workers, and then if you like it, you just get a degree and they get a license to start operating it. So in hospital, personal support worker was a very good profession. It is similar to a social worker in India. So they basically bridge the gap of nursing and and in nursing. And then in nurses, there are two different types of professions or lines. So there is a RPN, which is a registered professional nurse, and there is a registered nurse. So RN is, you can think of, they have more scope in terms of what they can or cannot do. RPN is a faster process to be a nurse, but with somewhat a limited scope. So really lots of options there. I'll encourage you to look for it. And then when we talk about patient-facing roles, it's not nursing or things like which I mentioned, physician come to the mind on the top, but there is really a battery of people, if I can call it for the lack of better word, supporting nurses and physicians in a hospital environment. So there is clinical administration, which also is a patient-facing role. So things like operations manager, receptionist, patient navigators. So because hospital sometimes can be larger, it can be complex systems to navigate. So patient navigators play a really important role. Bibaswan also touched upon privacy and confidentiality. It is very big and somewhat a deterrent, but I believe it is like there's a balance required, but it is an important part to ensure that your information is safe. So there is an opportunity there as well. So privacy officers are almost always there in a hospital. There's a team behind ensuring the confidentiality of data is maintained. So if you are somewhat of a inquisitive nature, very detailed oriented, that you can opt for as a career as well. And we have seen shortages of that as well, with policy changing almost now every month, really. So that's another field. Then there is environmental services, so making sure the hospital is a safe place to operate.
Something like ESG.
ESG, yeah, ESG would be a more sophisticated version. So what I mean by environmental services in a hospital is so patient transfers. So porters are there, and you need to make sure all the rooms are set up nicely, with all the codes required for each patient. And moving PPEs from one place to another, from sterilization department to, let's say, operation theater. So these things are done by environmental services in hospital. But ESG is another different field altogether, very important these days in any industry, really. So so I was going there. And then security is another field, not just data security, but also physical security in hospitals. So if someone is looking for that kind of a career, we have shortages of those as well. Finally, I wanted to mention mental health. So when we think of patient-facing or even general health, as Bibaswan mentioned, we have come a long way in terms of thinking mental health as health, but there is still a lot to go. Even in developed economies as well. So mental health professions are also patient-facing roles and critical roles, and COVID has just only exposed it. This has been a falling pillar, if I may call it, from quite some time. So, and then now all of a sudden, when this need has been recognized, there is a huge shortage and recognized that there is recognition that there is a shortage. Both things are happening. So mental health professionals, so counselors, certified psychotherapist, psychologist. So there are so many things, psychometrist as well. So a lot of scope in this area as well. So yeah, just wanted to mention these things. I can go on, but I feel just being cognizant of everyone's time.
I
Just
know.
being
Yeah,
more.
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned about a couple of things which I recall is that I mean, just for the knowledge of everybody, that by 2030, I think about 50 million, or it was 5 million. Sorry, 5 million people in Canada is going to retire, right? And
Probably, yeah.
of course, they would be, of course, across all the work life, but then obviously there'll be a lot of opportunity. And also there is a stated policy of the Canadian government that from 2022 to 2024, there'll be about 1.4 million people coming in as immigrants. So I think Canada does need a lot of people with respect to not just healthcare, but obviously healthcare would be one of the biggest area of opportunity for young people in India studying in different subjects, not just healthcare, but any subject, I think, has a good opportunity.
Yep.
Now, coming back to Bibaswan, Bibaswan, you are involved in a lot of technology introduction into the healthcare system in the Canadian healthcare system. So could you just explain a little more about your role in that, and what are the different new technology trends which you're seeing?
Okay, so talking about, first of all, yeah, in my capacity, what we do is basically look into the whole healthcare ecosystem, right? So there's a number of startups that are coming up in each and every sector these days, right? So people are trying to realize that entrepreneurship is a viable career option as well, but also that there's new ideas that needs to be brought into every field, and not just healthcare, but I've been part of accelerators and incubators, and I've seen these advances or technological advances happening in other fields as well. But especially in healthcare, what we do is basically evaluate technologies that are coming out, sort of mentor them, coach them into getting them ready for the adoption into healthcare, and then help finally when the product is ready, commercially ready, we help them get into the Canadian health system. So obviously through that role, I interact with a lot of startups all the time. It's incredible to see the amount of technology and the amount of advances that are happening in healthcare, or especially in healthcare startups. So that's definitely one focus area, is to see how these technological advances are happening, and how healthcare, the reception of hospitals and other healthcare organizations to try newer things is getting better and better as well. And obviously, as Gaurav mentioned, there's a shortage of staff at this time. So even if a lot of hospitals want to try new technologies, they can't, just because they don't have the manpower to do that. And obviously, once things start getting better or we start recovering from the effects of COVID-19, we will slowly see more and more innovation happening in the healthcare industry, especially in terms of adoption into the healthcare system, especially in Canada. In the US, it's a lot better. The healthcare industry is much more mature in there, and a lot of the startups have already made big in the US, right? So we hear about a lot of startups that are already in the market. They're selling their products, and they've raised Series B, which is like hundreds of, or Series B, C, D, which is like hundreds of millions of dollars already, or gone public as well, right? So they've gone public, and so now coming back to the trends, I think there's 6 or 7 key trends that are happening, and I think both me and Gaurav can chip in any of these. But I think the first trend that's happening, and I think you mentioned a list there during your presentation as well, SP, but first of all, there's AI and ML, which is going to be there. It's not new. I won't say that this is trending. It has been probably trending from the last 10 years or so. It's not just the trend, but it's also where it's going, right? So till now, I think that's, again, it's my personal opinion, but till now, what we were doing in AI and ML was figuring out how to do it. Now it's actually we are executing what have been learned in the last decade and have been operationalizing it, right? So that's changing. So we can talk about a little bit about AI and ML. Remote patient monitoring and telehealth is on the rise, and obviously, again, I probably mentioned it earlier, COVID actually accelerated the adoption of these technologies. The third is IoT and wearables, and we all have smartwatches now, but the way now wearables and smartwatches are being used for health monitoring, that's changing, and it ties very well into the remote monitoring aspect as well. Then there's AR and VR, and I think that's where the trend is happening. This is something that is flashy and trendy at this time, is using augmented reality and virtual reality in healthcare. And there's few different areas where it's being used right now, but this will continue to grow. The next is bioprinting or organ printing, which is slowly starting to happen. There's few clinicals, and we can talk about that, what it is and how it's being used, but also 3D printing in medical devices as well, right? So we are working currently with a company who are 3D printing small equipment in hospitals as well, and so that they can be replaced a lot quicker, because obviously printing can be done pretty fast. And all of these go into two things, which I won't say trending, but are coming out more now and are what's going to be the future. The first is, I think we have already touched upon it, is data security and privacy. That's going to trend for the next decade, because data is the most valuable asset right now in healthcare, right? And since we have stored now tons and tons of data, data security is becoming increasingly important. And the next is personalized medicine or precision medicine, right? And all these AI, ML, remote monitoring, they all lead to personalized medicine and precision medicine, right? So these areas, and again, these also, so these are, I feel that these are the trends right now. Obviously, when we talk about drug development, vaccine development, these have been ongoing for the last like 5-6 decades or even longer, right? So these things are always going to be there. They are like the bread and butter of healthcare, right? Like without drugs, without medication, without vaccines, we cannot survive. So these are like necessities for the healthcare industry to run or move forward. But these are, I won't say these are trends, right? Because these have always been there. These will always be there, right? And also, like, I think one thing we did not mention is, especially from the academic perspective, is that academia is going to be there as well forever, right? Yeah. So research, yes. Basic research is going to be there. Like how much, innovation is always going to happen, because we need to come up with new ideas. The ecosystem is being made ready for doing or getting it to a place where innovation can happen much frequently, right? But research has been happening throughout the world. There's so much exciting research happening. What we might see more and more is that translation of that research into the industry, right? Which was lacking, right? Because research used to happen a lot in silos, which is gone now, or I would say almost gone now. it's happening much more in a collaborative way at this time. Like you are seeing collaborations between India, Canada, China, Russia, etc. Right? So US, all top countries, like all European countries, Germany and France and England, are all of these countries are there's research collaborations going all around, right? So that's happening. So the silos are going away. Research is happening more collaboratively, but also there's much more emphasis on how this research is translated. So that's another career pathway for young students to think about, is how can we help in the translation? So there's a field of technology transfer. Very few professionals worldwide work in that field, right? But this is going to be a very important role going forward, is like, how can you translate, right, the technology? We don't talk about a lot, but business development, business related skills are very important in the healthcare industry too, right? So, you can work for startups, and there's a lot of startups these days. They probably won't pay you as much as any other jobs, but you can get equity shares out of the company as well, depending upon the kind of roles you are doing. It's a very good place to start learning, because they're always trying something new, young and creative teams. So that's something I think students should think about more, is not going after the big banners first, but going to a startup, learning what it takes to bring a product into the market, right? And that's where I think that the change in the thought process is happening as well, right? We are doing research, we are coming up with innovation, and now what next, right? How can we productize it, right? How can we put it in hands of more and more patients? Because it's not only important to sell a product, but how to make it available for patients. And if you don't translate that information from research to the industry, then the innovation is lost, right? All the taxpayers' money that is going into figuring out why it's happening, if it's not helping the patients at the end of the day, if it's not helping human beings at the end of the day, then that research is getting lost, right? So that translation is very important, so that and these kind of career options, career opportunities are going to have to come more and more, just because even granting agencies these days, right? So the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health in US, the CIHR, which is the Canadian Institute of Health Research. There's the National, Science Education and Research Council. All these granting agencies in Canada and US are now asking for translation, right? So, how would you? So there's now dedicated sections in the grants where you have to write, how would you translate your research and how would it benefit the end user or human beings at the end, right? So basic research is still going to happen. It's not that basic research is going to stop, but there's a current trend of using that research for something beneficial that can be brought forward in the world, right? So roles related to that are going to increase more and more, right? So people who have an understanding of both the industry and the academia, they are going to benefit from that. There's roles, as I said, startup roles are going to increase more and more, right? So these will be, in terms of careers, these would also trend over the next decade or so.
Now,
and we can go, we can go, and talk about a few of these technologies, but I'll leave it up to you and Gaurav.
I think before we get into the specific part of the technology, I just wanted to understand from you, there are two conflicting areas here. One is the data security on one hand. On the other hand, the technology of wearables and IoT, those are going to increase because you need that technology intervention for effective health management going forward. So how do you see that panning out in coming years?
Gaurav, you want to take it first, or should I go?
No, I think it makes flow. So you can start.
Okay.
I'll chip in.
Okay, so personally, at least and I'm just talking about US and Canada perspective. So there's personal health information, or PHI, is regarded as precious as it can be, right? So just as an example, just as an example, if you're working directly with healthcare data, you need government clearance and police clearance and everything to be done before you actually touch healthcare data or patient-related data, where you'll be seeing the real, like, raw patient data, right? So all the healthcare professionals are certified, definitely, but that needs to be done. Now there's HIPAA and PHIPAA, right? So the HIPAA is the Health Information Protection Act, basically, and PHIPAA is, so basically the difference is that HIPAA regulates disclosure of protected health information by certain entities like the government, like the hospitals, etc. While PHIPAA outlines the laws that govern, the health information custodians, right? So how is data stored? So and managed. So these are, though there have been a little bit of change in these policies, these laws over COVID, but still these have to be implemented for collecting data. Any patient-related data have to be cleared by HIPAA and PHIPAA, right? So that's something that is definitely going to happen. Is the and we can take the Samsung case for an example, right? So they put in EEG and blood pressure monitoring into their smartwatch, right?
Yeah.
They had to release the watch without these functionalities, right? So they were going through the FDA and Health Canada for approval. They got FDA first, so they were launched in. So these are regulated. So that's my point, is these are regulated, very well regulated, to see that the data that you are collecting are safe and are only meant to do what they're claiming, which is, monitor your blood pressure. Data is not stored there. What's happening more and more is there are tools being made on the top of these sensors, right? So the Samsungs and the Apples and the Fitbits, they come up with the sensors, right? So now there's third-party healthcare startups who are coming up, who are creating tools to extract data from there and to send it to the physicians, right? First of all, is the first thing in HIPAA or PHIPAA is consent, right? So the first thing is whether the patient gives you the consent to collect this data. If I say yes, it goes ahead. If I say no, it cannot go ahead, right? And it's a very big legal suit waiting to happen if I don't consent to take my data, and you do it. So whenever you are using wearables, and this is for general public all the time, this has been mentioned a number of times as well, is if you want to be, if you don't want to give consent to these things, don't give consent. And if you have any understanding, or if you realize in any way that your health data is being compromised, report it as soon as possible so that this can be investigated. And it's like a huge lawsuit making that happen. So that's something that usually is taken care of. So I think companies like, and then, again, Gaurav would probably be the best person to talk about it. But what I've learned is companies like PwC, EY, they are spending, or even, Deloitte, I've seen, they are spending more and more infrastructure and resources on data security, like especially in the healthcare data security field, to prevent cybercrime. So in Canada, in the last couple of years, whatever cyber threat has happened on healthcare data. Even during the Russia-Ukraine situation, the hackers are just targeting healthcare data right now, right? There's two things. One is usually the hospital systems that they're stored in is archaic. So it's sometimes there's a vulnerability there, but they are getting new software updates and new system updates, infrastructure updates as well. But also that's the most precious data at this time, right? So if you control health, you control the country's basically the heart of the country, right? So that's something that is definitely happening, but this will continue to move forward. Gaurav.
Yeah, no, a
Gaurav,
lot of
before you come in, I wanted to add one more question. So,
yeah.
do you see that insurance companies will make it a mandatory that, okay, if you want to take a life insurance coverage from me, you have to take this wearable along with you?
Very relevant question. I just closed my life insurance. I won't name the name of the company. Just the last, probably 2 weeks ago. So it is a trend. I'll start with this and then go back to what I was going to say anyways. So yes, insurance companies do want to track the data, but since Canada is, as Bibaswan mentioned, is probably a lot more stringent and difficult in terms of getting approvals on especially sensitive data. The progress has been slower, but it is going in that direction. So now the current state is, if you go for any life insurance, they will say highly recommended that you go through the medical to qualify for the best rates. If not, we will not deny you the life insurance, but you'll get Y rate, which is like some higher than your best rate. So this is you can call it clickbait, or probably just insurance companies insuring themselves to make sure that they're doing business with a sense. So it is there. It's not completely like you have to go through this to get there, but it is going in that direction where maybe it's not the law, but users will have very little choice in terms of skipping this step. So that's for the life insurance. I actually took the took the medical examination to get to the best rates, but yeah, it is going there. And it is not just life insurance, it is also going in auto insurance, which is a big industry here. So in auto insurance, they don't do health check, but they want to monitor your driving. So
Okay.
more or less the same thing. So life insurance, they are monitoring your lifestyle, and in auto, they're monitoring your driving style to come give you the best rates. Now going to Bibhasan, he actually covered a lot of very critical points. One of the things examples I want to mention, just to again put things into perspective, there is so much digitalization of things in not just in healthcare, everywhere really, and it's very much seen in India, just because of the adoption of digitization, and also the governance model has been very effective. So the penetration has also been great in terms of adoption of digital technologies. So a very specific example is pharmacy prescriptions. So even now, not even 10% of pharmacy prescriptions in Canada are electronic. They're fax based. So just try to digest that for a second. Whereas in I would say most of the states in the United States, there is no other option other than electronic. So it is very exception based that you are not choosing electronic. You have to really be very specific why you did not choose electronic prescription. So that is the difference. So there is only one major company that is driving the e-prescription landscape in Canada. So, and that too is a public-private partnership kind of a entity. So again, huge scope there for any career aspirant, but also just putting things into perspective of how much development needs to happen, and with the wearables and IoTs and so many apps, the healthcare data. The thing about healthcare data is it is everywhere. So probably the most spread out data, if you compare it to any other industry, I would say even further expansive than your financial data. But yeah, healthcare would I would say anyway stop that, and it is only going to increase. So such is the spillover of data that there is a huge chance for hackers to get good access to your data and use it to their advantage. So there is again where there is a the scarcity, or where there is a situation or problem, there is a solution to it. So yeah, there is a lot of scope to be a part of that solution in terms of technical skills. The other thing is because of that spillover is happening. And Bibaswan also mentioned about archaic healthcare information systems. So again, a good quick example of putting things into perspective. In Canada, majority of the health information systems. So health information systems are basically systems used by healthcare entities to manage patient data. So health information systems in Canada, the large part of market share is basically held by two companies only. So again, in US, there is tons and tons of companies. In India, there's far much more. But if someone is looking as an entrepreneur to crack a market in healthcare, that is again another important avenue. You don't need to have a full-fledged healthcare information system, but you can bridge some of the problems that even mature healthcare information system does not have. So things that come to mind, even like some of the mature systems are very restrictive in Canada, at least for video calling patients. So that's another, because I've seen hospitals that have purchased a mature product, but then for the video calling of the patient, they are relying on a different technology or a different company. So there's a lot of integrations possible. Again, for an entrepreneur, this is an important field. And also finally, Bibaswan touched upon I think you were mentioning about a company that had a FDA approval, or Samsung, I think. Samsung had a FDA approval, but couldn't get Health Canada approval in time, so they had to release products without certain functionalities. But that is also an opportunity. What Health Canada, what I have seen is the same, even if you're manufacturing a drug, or if it's a wearable, if it's a IT system, same thing. It's generally is a bit low on speed. So if someone is in India and they are already have a knack of entrepreneurship and they know what they want to do, so I would say sample size in India is far larger than you would get in any developed country. So it is not a bad option, and I'll let Bibaswan to talk about the logistics of it. To actually try out a product in India, have a sample size, large enough there, get the results ready, and then apply for, there are specific immigration streams for startups. So Canada is recognizing that. So apply through that and get your process ready. So by the time maybe your visa is processed, you may have, gotten lucky and get Health Canada approval. And yeah, so that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way. I think Bibaswan, you can add to that, because you are in the profession where you are actually you are the interface between the startups and the industry itself.
Yeah, sure. It's very interesting point, Gaurav. Actually, that's the best case situation. The only problem that's happening at this time, and I'm seeing it more and more from companies from India who are applying to Health Canada and FDA, is the burden of data, right? So that's something that I feel needs to be better in India at this time, is how to get the data properly without any biases, right? So designing clinical trials as per the FDA and Health Canada guidelines. I would say, if you are going that pathway, or for young entrepreneurs who are trying to start their new companies or thinking about new products and how to bring in a market, India is the best place to start a company, just because what I understand is there's a lot of resources available in India right now to help young small businesses at this time. But also what happens is you already have like a huge population and then can use it to your advantage, right? So as Gaurav said, do your trials there, right? You need to, if you want to see a product market fit, then India is the best place to try out the product, right? And we have seen they're seeing like, I was just, I think I told this to you, SB, in my last conversation as well. I watched like the Shark Tank India, and I was amazed by the amount of innovation that's happening in India, right? So I'm pretty sure in the healthcare, it's the same. I've met with companies in the past who are US based companies. They have 3 people in US and probably 50 people in India, and they're trying their product. It's a diabetes um, monitoring technology. They're trialing it in India, right? The only thing, as I said, that you have to make sure of, for anyone who is trying to see or test the product, is to collect the data in a proper way so that it can be used for FDA applications later on. And again, you would know about the story behind like the Covaxin or the Bharat Biotech product that FDA didn't approve or took a long time approving, right? So just because that the burden of data was too much and the trials weren't done in specific ways. It was done properly. I'm not saying that it wasn't done poorly, or it's a vaccine that didn't work. It's just that it did not meet FDA criteria. So what should you do is, first time when you're raising, you have some idea and you are raising your first seed round of investments from any investors in India. It does not cost much to hire. In terms of running the company, you should dedicate or have consultants there who can help you with FDA and Health Canada, right? So once you have got a regulatory consultant who is going to review your clinical trial, show you what needs to be collected, what data needs to be collected, have that extra bit of money in there so that you can spend it right from your seed stage and show that it's show FDA and Health Canada that the product is working, right? And then collect it in a specific way that they recommend. So that's something very, very important, because even what happens is 2-arm studies are even not applicable for, if you're going for a therapeutics or a even a digital therapeutics. You need a 3-arm study, right? So you need the data arm, the standard of care plus the intervention that you have done, and then you need a sham control, which a lot of people don't. They just compare it with the standard of care, right? So vaccine versus no vaccine, right? That's what they compare. But you need a sham. You need to show that there's a fake vaccine there that have been administered, and it does not, without the vaccine effect, it's just like saline or something, and people are not getting better. That's something that you need to show as well. And even in terms of digital health products, digital wellness products, and then there's wellness, right? So there's therapeutics and then there's wellness. So a lot of remote patient monitoring is coming right now. That's happening. Wearables are happening in the health and wellness space. So how you track yourself, how you are feeling about yourself, right? But the transition is going from wellness to therapeutics. How can you get yourself better? How can the physicians use this data to get yourself better, right? So that's a switch in the mentality that's happening as well.
Okay, and your organization is specifically into that. I mean, the process of advising the Indian entrepreneurs or startups to follow this template for the Canada Health approval, that is something your organization can handle?
No, unfortunately, no. So we are very focused on Canadian healthcare and Canadian healthcare startups, right? So, but there are organizations, who can help Indian startups to grow in Canada. Okay. So, if anyone needs more information, I'll be happy to share. But there's consultants, right? And even, I can connect you with certain consultants across US and Canada. If you're from India and you're starting a company, need any advice, I can definitely connect you with other consultants in US and Canada who are working regularly with the startups, with startups as well. But unfortunately, no, our organization is very much focused in Canadian healthcare and Canadian startups and the Canadian healthcare industry. Unless like there's an Indian company, which has happened in the past, actually, we are working with an Indian company, but they have set up their headquarters in Canada. So they had like one of the founders is in India and one of the founders is in Canada. So if you can find that way, best case situation, right? Then we can help that company definitely, because they are headquartered out of Canada, but they have offices in India as well. So they can do like, the clinical trials here there and get their products commercialized here, right? But even in terms of product market fit, like the market in India is huge, right? It's much larger than Canada, and probably closing in on the US in the next few years. But US market is a little bit down, obviously, right? At this time, it's a very bearish market at this time. And obviously we are seeing a lot of impact of COVID-19 on European and North American economies. But yeah, India and China is going to be, China is like, I think, the number one economy now, and India is slowly getting there. But in terms of healthcare product markets, I think India is a bigger market anyways. People even coming up in companies in Canada who are coming up with products, they are healthcare specific products. They are looking, Asia Pacific is the market for them right now. Europe and Asia Pacific is the market for them right now. And they are, a lot of companies want to grow in US, in India and China and Singapore and all other Asian countries. So yeah, that's happening. South Korea is a big market. Japan is a big market.
Okay. You mentioned about bioprinting. So can you explain about what is the concept?
Yeah. So tissues, right? So the first thing that's happening is, bioprinting is basically printing specific tissues, organs that can be replaced, right? So organs are a little bit further down the lane, right? So what we have been doing in suppose transplantation is we are using donor hearts, donor organs to transplant it when there's a critical emergency, right? There are new technologies out there at this time which are printing these tissues exactly the way it would be in a regular, normal human being, and they're using that to create organs and create tissues that can be replaced, right? So the ones that are in clinical trials right now are skin tissue grafts. So I think there was a news a couple of days back that it has been successful, but it's still in the clinical trials phase. The data have been submitted to FDA, so they'll have a look at it. But this is becoming more and more frequent. There's a number of companies that are using bioprinting now and clinically trying their products, because that is going to be a huge industry, right? If you take away transplantation, because there's problem with transplantation as well, right? Because the genetic makeup of human beings is so much different from one from the other, that matching that, there's always a chance of rejecting transplanted organs, and transplant is a huge issue anyways, right? Even in Canada, there's I think a lot of people actually donate their, in Alberta, at least I've seen, and in Ontario as well, like in majority of the province, I think you can sign in the back of your health cards, or you can go online and then say that you want to, we are willing to donate your bodies. And that has happened, that has definitely helped. But it's not only about the donation, it's about the accepting that donation from the perspective of the recipient body as well. And in this, blood groups that needs to be matched. There's even blood marrow that needs to be matched. So there's a lot of complication in transplantation. And this is definitely going to solve it, right? Because then you are creating that tissue, printing that tissue, basically based out of your own genetic makeup, right? So that's something that is going to be the future, right, in terms of transplantation. But bioprinting is being used in very different kinds of ways as well, in terms of, it's being right now used in research. It's 3D printing devices are being used for creating medical devices as well, right? So I'm closely working with a company who's just creating small equipment, or even some equipment, some things that are missing out of there. So an MRI machine or ultrasound sound machine, if it's missing a particular component, if it's broken, it takes weeks for it fix it, right? But they're just 3D printing it for the short term, cheaper cost. They're keeping them, machine running, so they're not losing any money there, and they're, and then they're solving a critical problem, right? Which is delay in the delivery of healthcare. So that's something that is definitely happening.
I think Gaurav, I was actually thinking about that question. So the cultured meat has a direct connection with this?
So no, I was saying, so I actually, Bibaswan, I don't know if you saw the comment in the chat.
Yeah.
I said on a lighter note, people could research lab meat. So it's not exactly the same thing, but you get the idea of how tissues can be used to create organs, or so yeah, that actually, I would say, is more exposed in the media and more you wouldn't have
I think
to dig in.
the cultured meat is in talks for a long time now, because I think it is also with respect to the environmental effect of the meat eating. I think that's where it is coming. So probably they are seeing that, okay, if there is a cultured meat, there is a possibility of reducing the impact of the carbon emission and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah, it's to tackle more of the carbon emission and greenhouse gas emissions, right? So yeah, so that's the future actually. That's the trend, right? And we're talking about trends here.
Yeah.
Right. Gaurav, would you like to add anything further on this?
No, I think it's Bibaswan's area of expertise, but few things I was thinking, but he did cover it. And so I just wanted to end on lab meat. So just for anyone who is not aware, yeah. And when we talk about sorry,
go ahead.
One thing I wanted to mention is we talked about mental health, human health, and with lab meat, actually animal health is also health. So it is a whole new discussion. Not my idea, my concept is not to digress from the discussion topic for today, but I think it is as relevant as human health. And sometimes in some situations, actually, from a research standpoint, it is actually a very, very important aspect to understand animal health, to understand animal genomics, to understand how certain chemicals or certain medications would react with the animals, to understand if it can be progressed to human stages. So again, very important field, and very developed actually in Canada. The good thing about animal health in Canada and also in most Western countries where there is public health care otherwise, animal health is still pretty largely private. And with private, you get a little bit more exposure, or a little bit more flexibility in terms of what you can or cannot do, obviously within the ethical framework. But you can, for example, set up your own animal hospital if you are have license to do it. But you cannot set up a human hospital if you are a doctor. So that's just a very ground level difference.
That's a very that's a different perspective. But I think I know a lot of young people from India are actually looking at veterinary science as one of their career opportunity.
Absolutely. Like, I didn't bring it up just because, I thought like we're focusing more on like human healthcare, but animal health is huge in Canada, right? So at least there's 3 to 4 provinces in Canada, like states in Canada that are very big on agriculture and, vet studies. So, because the cattle industry is huge here, in both in terms of beef and in terms of milk, both, right? That's a very big industry. But also veterinary sciences, just in normal, regularly, that's an as it's a privatized industry again. So there's a lot of opportunities here to work with animals, and both in terms of research and in terms of like having a career. That's a very viable option.
Okay. I think we got few minutes remaining for this meeting, and we have some people on the live available here. So I would actually open the forum for any specific question. People can actually put it in the chat box, or they are presentable enough on Sunday evening, they can switch on the camera and ask the questions to us. I think both Bibaswan and Gaurav would love to answer your query if there is one. And I would definitely like to encourage you to please ask, because we've got experts here who can actually try to give you the answer or address to their best possible capacity. So ladies and gentlemen, this is open now for any kind of questions. So I encourage you to, and it could be related to anything related to a career, related to healthcare, related to veterinary science, or related to even the general career guidance as well. So I know the first one is always difficult.
Yeah. The first question is always, someone has to take the lead and then everyone starts asking questions.
Yes, yes, yes.
No one has questions here. That means they've been very attentive. They have learned everything that we have said.
Right. So I think people probably are, right now.
Yeah, and then
like,
it's 8:30 in
yeah, it's
India.
like 8:25.
And a lot of people are watching probably the IPL as well. So
Oh no, there is a question here, I think, on the chat box.
It's not a question. Thanks, Vidya. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Talking about IPL, sorry. No, go on.
Yeah, Gaurav, you were saying something?
No, I was saying, since you talked about IPL,
yeah.
Again, my head always goes through healthcare. Like regardless of what you put it out of the window. It's just like I'm too passionate about healthcare. So sports health, I don't know if anyone is very interested in that. That also is a
That's
very,
like
very
$1 billion industry. That's
yeah.
But it's very very competitive as well, right? And I think it's a very competitive industry. And yeah, I think one thing we probably didn't talk about much is like as career is like physiotherapy and
yes
and direct patient caring roles, right? So physiotherapy, acupuncture, massage therapy. These are like also massage therapists and physiotherapists and chiropractors. These are always in demand in Canada, right? They are very, very important for the healthcare industry here. There's innovations happening in that area as well, just so that there's always a demand. So there's innovations happening, obviously, but it's a huge industry.
Yeah.
Gaurav,
no,
go ahead.
I was just saying, in as I mentioned before as well. So the good thing about these careers and a healthcare career in general, for most of the matured state careers, you also have an assistant career, which is I love this concept. It's like an internship, but you're getting paid for it as a professional. So for example, massage therapist, there is a RMT, which is a registered massage therapist, who is like the pinnacle of their licensing. But there's also certified massage therapist, which like you don't have to invest that much time and money into it, but you get to do all the same thing. And once you think that you're comfortable enough, you liking it, you invest more and get your registration done. Similarly with like dentists, you get a dental assistant, you can be a dental hygienist. Again, all as the levels have different levels of commitment in terms of time and resources, but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think initially we saw the global map where a lot of blue colors were there. I mean, Canada, most of Europe, Japan, all these countries will have much similar application of healthcare requirement. I think similar to Canada, the opportunities will be there across these countries as well. And I think it is, I mean, Canada, USA, Australia, all these places, one advantage is that English speaking. So that's definitely a huge advantage for Indians. But if you're a young Indian and you have a knack of picking up languages, I think it would be great to actually pick up some European language or even
French
Japanese.
could come in very handy
French,
in
yeah.
Canada. I always tell young people who are trying to move to Canada, is French can come real handy here, right? Because there's a lot of jobs that needs French as either a primary or a secondary language, and they prefer the dual bilingualism. So that French always helps in Canada.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think we could cover most of the points we thought of discussing, and I know it is just the top end of what are the trends and what are the opportunities, what are the career options which are available on the healthcare system. Both Gaurav and Bibaswan, I think, try to give the overall picture of how things are, and obviously they give a lot of example of Canada, because both of them are in Canada and they've been living there for over 10 years now. So, and they've been part of the health industry themselves in different roles. So they have been able to give those examples, but that I'm sure, as I mentioned, the opportunities will be very, very similar in most part of Europe, most part of the areas where we saw the median age are actually getting older, and healthcare is a huge requirement. I think by 2030 there'll be 1.4 billion people who will become 60 plus years. So if you are a young person in the school or college and you are you have the the personality, like empathy, sympathy, and these are some basic qualities, I think, which is required in terms of being being a person who can be on the patient facing side, or you are somebody who is good at technology, who can be on the back end side. So opportunities are there across on the health sector. So so choose something which is relevant, which is of your interest, and I'm sure you will do well in your profession. So gentlemen, Gaurav and Bibaswan, thank you so much for joining us today for this webinar. And I also thank all the participants, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here and being part of this. And I'm sure a lot of the people who actually registered probably have not been able to join, but then not to worry. This video will be available on the YouTube as well, because this is now getting live stream on the YouTube. So you can catch all the talks what we had with Bibaswan and Gaurav. And the best part is you can reach out to both Bibaswan and Gaurav through their LinkedIn profiles, and they've been very helpful for especially young and Indians. They are very happy to share their knowledge, their wisdom, and guide you for future in the specific health sector. So thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everyone.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Take care.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
very
Bye.
nice.